Welcome to our final class of the day, presented by Jerroleen Sorensen on searching for United States records. And we welcome you, and we'd like to turn the time over to her. We'd like to thank her first for the time she spends preparing and sharing her expertise with us. And we appreciate our instructors and this great service they provide to the public. All of these classes are recorded and they're viewed thousands of times after these presentations, so it is a great service.
Hey, thank you. I'm very happy to be here today. Today's presentation is how do I search for United States records? And this is something that most of us who are from the United States, of course, find somewhat difficult sometimes because they're scattered all over the place in the United States, and trying to find them can sometimes be a little bit difficult. So I'm hopeful that this will help you to do a little bit easier job of finding your records. Okay, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the general principles of U.S. research. So a lot of people try to start with the ancestor that came over to the United States, and sometimes that doesn't work very well. It's best to start with your nearest and dearest. So start with the people that are closest to you, work backwards to the ancestor that immigrated to the States, even if it was in 1707 or something, 1607 or 1807. If we start with that person, it's going to be quite difficult sometimes to make sure that we're on the right line and that we've got the right ancestors. So always start from closest and go back and check everything and make sure that everything is accurate before you start moving on to someone else further down the line. Choose an ancestor that you want to look at, whether it's a great grandparent or even your own grandparents, or if you've already gotten past that, go a little bit further down, ask a question about that person. What do you want to find out? Or choose a research goal. I want to find out if that person owned land in such and such a county or something like that. Now, the best thing in the world is geography. As I've said before, my philosophy of genealogy is that geography is genealogy, or genealogy is geography. You can't do genealogy without knowing where the person was located. So try really hard to find the county, not just the state, at least of birth, death, or marriage, but hopefully all three. And one of the ways you can do that, of course, is to check the censuses. So check all the censuses that could possibly be available for that person. And I always recommend that you go 10 years before you think he was born or she, and then go 110 years up to 110 years into the censuses, if it's possible, of course, to find out if they were in any of those censuses. Even if you think he died, if you don't know that he died, then check, continue, and also check surrounding pages, because sometimes you'll find other family members within the town itself that you're looking at. Second, another one then is to look at all the types of records in all the possible locations and repositories. Sometimes we get it in our head that so-and-so was living in such and such a town in such and such a state, and we don't look anywhere else. And we can sometimes lose out on a lot of really good things if we don't realize that people, even in the 1700s, were quite mobile in the United States. They moved around a lot, which is why immigration, migration, and naturalization are essential to your search. And then the last thing I always stress is to create charts, whether they're census charts, organizational charts for a family group. You can do it online. You can do it with spreadsheets. You can do it with people who have already come up with different types of organizational sheets. Use what's best for you. Fortunately, now timelines are pretty easy because they're on a lot of the programs that you use to put your family tree. But do use those. It will make things a lot easier and a lot more accurate for you. Another thing is to use DNA research. There are a lot of DNA databases out there now, and lots of people have had their DNA done. So get your DNA done, even with more than one company. And be aware that even though, of course, it can provide good clues, those clues might be ones that you weren't necessarily expecting. I do a lot of consultations with people who say, I didn't realize that my grandfather was not really my grandfather. So be aware of that. And if you don't want to find that kind of thing out, or you have suspicions and you don't want to know, then just don't do it. Don't make yourself have any anguish. If you do it, however, there's a lot of information out there on DNA. I'll mention one thing later, but the Family Search Library has consultations that you can get. Some people are not aware that they're only 20 minutes, but if you do a DNA consultation with the Family Search Library, this is the one in Salt Lake, they're for 40 minutes, and they have two specific types. So don't just get a consultation for DNA research, you get a DNA consultation specifically. Now, no matter what time period you're looking for an immigrant, you're going to be looking for an immigrant unless you're a Native American ancestry. So for immigrants, this goes across the board for all immigrants. Find everything you can about the person and their descendants after they entered the United States. And you do that before you start researching the person in the home country. Get everything, because you will find it 10 times easier if you know as much about that person here before you get started trying to look in another country, because that's a whole another ball of wax. So look at all the things that you can find. There's a really good article in the Family Search Research Wiki here, Tracing Immigrants Search Strategies. You can just put that into the search box and it will come up on that. Here's a couple of other things. Make sure you look for your ancestors' naturalization records. Even if you think they may not have been naturalized, look it up anyway. They may have actually just applied and never actually finished their naturalization record. So, their naturalization process. So make sure you look for that. Look for information on the one-step web pages by Stephen Morse. He has a lot of different things. And one of the really wonderful things he's done is collect tons and tons of passenger lists from all over. There's also a collection of Castle Garden records up to 1927. And then another one is there's a tutorial for immigration in the Family Search Wiki called Immigration Crossing the Pond Collecting Records. And so you might want to look at that. That's a very, very good tutorial. It's maybe slightly outdated, but not enough to worry about. And then also, even if your ancestor lived in the United States, check the Canadian lists and databases, because many, many, many people came in and out of the United States and Canada who lived up north, or they first immigrated into Canada and then came across the border. And don't think that everybody came to New York either, because they didn't all come into New York either. There's also passenger lists into California. My great-grandmother and her family came across from the Pacific into California. So don't get stuck, is what I'm saying. It's easy to get stuck. Okay, so we're going to start with late 19th to 20th century research. And again, the most important thing is to find the county of their birth if they lived in the United States or were born in the United States. The first thing you want to always, always, always do is go to the United States genealogy and then find the state that they lived in. And then you find the county and you go to their page for the county. And then you go to the city or the town page if there is one. Look at the page very closely. Go through the getting started. Here I have the getting started with Georgia research. Go through all of that information there. Even if you think you know a lot about everything, I don't care. You don't know a lot about everything. You only know a lot about some things. So go through all that stuff. Just see what you don't know and then go to the research tools, and those will also give you some really good insights into the state. So this is very, very, very important. The second thing is on that page, there will be, this is the topic box. Okay, that's on the right side of the page. And it will have all these different record types. People overlook many, many types of records because they don't either know that they exist or they don't think they'll apply to their ancestor. I can guarantee there will be things that you will find in these that you never thought you would find. So do use all the record types. Don't just do vital records. Vital records are great and you need them, but that's not, and censuses too. They're not the only thing that you can find information about your family on. The background things are really useful, especially the biographies can sometimes, if you have a famous ancestor, and the migration thing is really, again, very important. Look at the migration in the state and see where people went and what roads they used, because as someone was migrating, if they had a relative in that town or city, it's possible that they would have visited them. And even if they didn't stay there and went back to their hometown, that they would have used one of those main migration routes to get from here to there. So look at the migration. There's also a lot of information in most states actually about African Americans, indigenous people. So if you have ancestors that came from American Indian lines, and interestingly enough, other cultural groups you'll find, you may not even be aware of them. And also archives, libraries, and the centers for the family search centers. So those are really, really good sources. This is something that's pretty new. It's called Step by Step. It's on every state, and sometimes they're a little bit different. So don't think that it's just exactly the same for every state. It's not. What they will do is, this is just the box that tells you which steps to use. Each one of those steps will have a little piece about how to do it and where to look for it in that state. So this is really, really cool. I really am impressed with this, and it's really wonderful. So do use it. And also do use it as just kind of to guide your research, so that you can start with this thing, go to that thing, and like, don't necessarily start with immigration records. That's not really your best source of information in certain cases. So go down the line and do it that way, and it will really, really help a lot. And if you don't find anything in one particular step, then move on to the next, and maybe the next one will help you to find something in the step before. You know, they're not necessarily set in stone, but it really does help a lot to go step by step in these things. Always search all the applicable censuses, including the state censuses. This tells you that there are some schedules, or for Georgia population and non-population schedules, are important sources of information, and where the censuses are, so you're not spinning your wheels looking for a census if it doesn't exist at all. And a lot of the states took state and territorial censuses pretty early on, so that's kind of useful as well. Use the records finder. This will tell you what to look for certain types of records. This is just the vital events box. There are other boxes for maiden names and other things. So these are really, really good. And again, search all the locations. So even if you think that your ancestor just lived in Kentucky, if you cannot find a birth record anywhere in Kentucky, then move out. Especially with counties, though. Find the county. If you can't find the county, start with the most likely county, and then move out to the surrounding counties and out to those surrounding counties. It's very important to search in the United States, particularly any location that you could possibly apply to your ancestor, and go outward from there. Okay, there's a new thing also in Family Search that's called the Historical Records link. You can see it right there. It's under the state, it's in the state page, and go down to Family Search Resources, and it's under Historical Records. It will take you to a page that has links that you can search from. Actually, you can put the names into the links that you need to search from. And it will also take you to the Learning Center, so you can find out more about how to do research in that particular locality. But it's got search links for index records, catalog collections, which are also listed there, and images. So that's really cool. And then this one, let's see, I'm sorry, I put this in the wrong place. This is about research before 1880. And I guess I just put continued when I shouldn't have, because this is actually the first page. Sorry about that. So find any county records before 1880. You're going to have to look in the counties. There's not going to be a lot of state records before 1880 in most places, especially in the West and the Midwest. So you're going to look in any county records that you can possibly find, and that includes court records and other types of records that would be located in the county. And church records will also be under county records a lot of times. They're the land deeds, estate deeds, sale records. Those are also under county, in the county records. Probate records will be in county records. Those are the 4 best records for counties. So when you know the county, which you really need before 1880, and find out the county boundaries, because those boundaries change. That's why I say, don't just look in a locality. Make sure you're looking in the right place. You'll find those county records pretty easily in most counties, but they're not necessarily going to be online. The county pages in the Research Wiki have links to this type of records and to other record types in the county. So you go to the county from the state page, and that's really easy to find. One thing you can do before you, for this type of research, is you can ask other people to help you. Always ask other people to help you. There's a really cool thing called visitancestralfindings.com. It's a woman and her husband who have this website. They do a free lookup service. They ask you not to inundate her with questions, but she loves doing it. So she will look things up for you. And actually, it has to be a specific question, though. You can't just say, I'm looking for this family, find something specific to ask her, and she will look it up for you. It's usually, she's pretty fast about it, apparently. And then the Family Search Library does this really great thing called the Record Lookup Service. And if you've noticed on Family Search catalog things, sometimes you can't find what you're looking for, not because it's not there, but because it's not available. And so if that's true, if it's restricted, has a lock on it, or it's only a microfilm, you can actually have that looked up in the Family Search Library by a Family Search person, and they will look it up and send you whatever they can, whether it's a transcript or an image of the record you're looking for. In the United States, usually they can do the images, not necessarily, but usually. So, and records, that includes books, it includes microfilms, it includes other images that have been digitized but are not available. So this is a really good source of things that are restricted. And then you can also, of course, visit the local Family Search Center or your local affiliate library to search for the premium program records or for those other records that are restricted. You can see a lot of those records in affiliate libraries. Some of them you cannot find unless you're in an affiliate library. Even in the Family Search Center, some of them are not available, but the affiliate libraries have most things available to them, not everything again, but most things. But you can also use the premium program records searches on all those premium programs that the Family Search Centers have contracts with. Here's some other places to look for these before 1880 records. State archives, some of them are on the Wayback Machine. This was done through a Reclaim the Records program. And so if you look up Digital State Archives on the Wayback Machine, depending on which state you're looking for, you'll be able to find those. There's also something called the Archive Grid. That's got a lot of different archives on it and where to find them and what they've got on them. And some of them are actually there. They're actually on the grid. It actually has the records itself. You can look up under United States Online Genealogy Records in Family Search on the United States page. They will have listings for not just Family Search, but other places you can go to look for different records. The United States Record Finder will also send you to different websites. You can use the newspaper archives. The newspaper archives are on each state wiki page. That's a United States. That's free. Not all newspapers are on it, and not all newspapers are free on other newspaper, like newspapers.com, for example. You have to pay or go to a family search center or a university to look at those. There's also this U.S. city directories in the research guides at the Library of Congress. Okay, so make sure you use the Library of Congress. It's a really great site for a lot of different things. Now, these are just some general things. Research friends, acquaintances, and neighbors, fans. They will oftentimes give you clues about who was related to whom. Search newspapers, journals, migration accounts, county histories, local societies, libraries, and archives, and all the other record types that appear on the wiki page for each locale. Don't stint your time. If you're going to do it right. Search Google, Family Search, US Gen Web is a great site. Library of Congress, the Ancestor Hunt is another really cool site. The National Archives, Family Search Books has like hundreds of thousands of books about families in the United States that have been written by genealogists and others, and histories that will have people's names in. And the Internet Archives is another one. Okay, so those are all really good places to look for, especially books and collections that have been printed. You can search for military records, like if they were in the Civil War or the American Revolutionary War. In the American Military, U.S. National Park Service site. And also the National Archives has a lot of military records, and also Fold 3. Fold 3 you can find free at the family search centers and libraries. I'm not sure all of them have Fold 3. Search the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers if you have pioneers who came across the plains. Search slave schedules if you have, or you think you have, ancestors that either owned slaves or were slaves. We just recently were able to help a friend of ours who is Black. His great-great-great-great-grandmother was Black, but his great-great-great-grandfather was white. And so we're helping him with finding any records about that family that we can find. One of those records will be plantation records. There's a really great book. This is a book, it's out of print, but you can find it in various libraries. Look in the World Cap, for example. I know they have a thing that says where you can find it. Index to records of antebellum Southern plantations, locations, plantations, surnames, and collections. Because it's a little hard sometimes to find things in the South, but this is something that will even be helpful if you have white ancestors in the South. And then also search Family History Help and Learning Center by topic, and you can find tutorials about finding different types of records. But the last thing I have to say about this 1880 and before is be exhaustive. Don't give up. Just keep looking. You'll find something. As a general rule, you'll find something about people. Now we'll go to Colonial Period records. I hope you saw how clever I was with the red, white, and blue stuff there. Colonial Period records, 1607 to 1776. The first thing I have to say about this period is do not reinvent the wheel. I have people coming to me to find an ancestor back there, and it's like they have no clue that anybody ever would have done any research on these people. And I'm like, no, this particular period has been researched absolutely, positively to death. Okay, it is the most researched part of United States history. So don't just think you have to do all the research and you're going to somehow find some record that somebody else never found, and so on, so on, so on. It's not going to happen. So things are going to be there for you to find. And so you're not probably, unless your person was really super obscure and all of a sudden you come across his journal or something, you're not probably going to find anything that's particularly new. That's just the way it is. But on the United States Colonial Record in the Research Wiki, you have all these different types of colonization, and there are things to find about all of these different types of colonizing. So there's plenty there. and even people came from all over the place to the United States to settle. This is the family search catalog. This is your first line of defense, really, including ancestry. I love ancestry, but for United States, I would always start with the family search catalog rather than the ancestry. That's just my preference. If you don't think that's right, that's fine. But I really think it's the best for the United States. So these are some of the things I found just looking in the catalog, just general things about the history and the colonization. So the way you're going to do this is first search United States, then go places within by the state, and then go places within by the county. Then you can go places within the county by the community. And this is what how you'll find different things. So the last one you see down there, United States, Virginia, Richmond. This is land and property. There's 13 of them available for Richmond County. This is very important. Land, property, and probate in the United States are very, very important. There's a lot of stuff. You can see 300 years of German immigration. That's a book, The Germans in Colonial Times. That's kind of cool too. It's just a lot of stuff there. And also look in books. Don't just look in catalog, look in books by keyword, author, surname, a lot of different ways to look in books. Here's some other places to look. American ancestors. If you have ancestors that came to the Northeast, this is your place to go. AmericanAncestors.org is one of the partner sites for family search. They have some signature projects. So when you go to their site, click on signature projects, and they include things like the Great Migration Project, Beyond Mayflower 2020, which is fantastic. If you had Mayflower, which I actually do, most of us do, we've had ancestry from the United States forever. They have early New England research. So if you have anything, up in the Northeast, it's going to be very, very useful for you to go there. They also have a large set of collections of records, including descendancy records. So they have tried really hard to get descendancy from the colonial period down into the modern period. They have books and collections about that. They have a large number of books to look at. These are just two. And they also have town guides, which are really, they're sort of like a little bit like the address books that you find in German research. They have the applicant list. This is really cool. They have the application list of the Genealogical Society of Mayflower Descendants. They have all the applications of people who wanted to be a part of that society. And you can search that and find an ancestor on those applications, and because they were trying to hook into the Mayflower as well. So it's, once you get back this far and you really know that you're on the right line, please make sure you know you're on the right line. Otherwise, you'll be in a totally different place than you should be. But once you get back this far and you think you may be hooking into the Mayflower in the early 1800s or late 1700s, mid 1700s, whenever you get to wherever you think you can hook in, this would be a good place to go to look at this application list. And then the New England Historic Genealogical Society, which is part of the AmericanAncestors.org company, they have 450 databases, including the register of the Mayflower descendants. So it's really awesome. It's a great place to go. There's other places besides that. Of course, there's the Daughters of the American Revolution. Now, this is, of course, this is 1776 and a little bit beyond, up to 1883, but that's okay. The Daughters of the American Revolution have, of course, been in the same situation as the Mayflower people, the General Society of Mayflower Descendants. They have had thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have applied to be in their organization, which means that they have genealogies coming out their ears. So do look at them and see what you could find there, because this is anybody who fought in the American Revolution. It's not people just from the Northeast, like kind of like American Ancestors is kind of more Northeastish. The General Society of the Mayflower Descendants has this Silver Books project. It traces all the descendants of the Mayflower to 7 generations away from the Mayflower. And you can find it at the mayflowersociety.org. They are still working on it. It's not complete. but I mean, it's huge. You can imagine there are millions and millions and millions of people that are descendants of the Mayflower. And then if you are outside of New England particularly, but even in New England too, there are lots of universities, the University of Virginia and others, that have projects and archives that are related to their colonial period of that state. So go to their websites, go to the university websites and find those things. It's amazing what these universities have. We've gone up to the university in Logan, the Utah State University. They have an amazing set of collections of things about the early settlers of Logan and Mendon and that valley. It's incredible. Also, look for your local and state genealogy societies. There are lots of them that specialize in colonial studies. One name studies can be quite helpful depending on what their basis is. But I kind of like one name studies. They're pretty cool. And then another place to look, of course, is books. There are countless books written about the colonies. You could have a whole library full of them about the colonies, the colonists, the war, the rebellions, all the things. So just look in those books and look at their indexes. Okay, so find anything or anyone or any location listed there that might lead you to any helpful information about your ancestor and your family. You can find these books online. A lot of them are online, not all of them. A lot of them will be in university libraries or other county libraries. But if you look on the Internet Archive, look in WorldCat, look in Google Books. Those are the three major ones, but there are others. So you can just look up on Google, look up, books about the colonies, books about this, books about that, and it'll come up. But you can actually just search these just specifically for different books. I found so many things on the Internet Archive that you would not believe the wonderful stuff that's on there. So do get familiar with it. I did a class that had a lot of information about the Internet Archive. You can look that up on YouTube. There are also vital records collections in the Internet Archive and in a lot of these books. And there's lots of books that are histories. There are lots of books that are family histories that trace family generations. Now, I've said this before in other places, and I'll say it again. Always be very, very, very suspicious of books about families that have descendancies or that have genealogies, because there are always mistakes in them. No matter how meticulous people are, you're going to sometimes find mistakes. And then that will set you off and you'll go, what? I thought it was this person and it's really that person. Well, if you thought it was that person, you could be wrong too, but you could be right and they could be wrong. So be really careful with these kinds of genealogies, okay? But a lot of them are right. I mean, a lot of them are correct. They're not, I'm not saying they're all incorrect. There's also genealogies on Family Search that are similar to this. Family Search has the genealogies, and that's part of one of the things that I did a class on as well. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. So I think that's about it. This is the end of this, but I hope it's not the end of your research, because American research is really pretty easy to do. It's not as hard as we sometimes think it is, as long as you're willing to do the legwork that is involved. There's a lot of legwork in it. So have fun and enjoy.